Tyrants on the Field, the one and only podcast where we go deep on the numbers as they appear in Longshanks and talk through what's been happening since the January update and the latest round of events. Additionally, over the course of the time here, not only has the January update dropped, but we have finally gotten the Steamroller 2025 packet. So this cast is going to be going over the events that have recently occurred, the sizable events that have gone on, and I want to talk about some tricks and trends that have sort of cropped up over this time frame. And we're going to be exploring LVO. We're going to be looking at CaptainCon. Additionally, we will be taking a look at the Broken Coast Barrage. And we will take a little peek at the down and dirty under of CanCon. So strap in. It's going to be a beefy episode. We are going to nerd out with some numbers and talk about some trends that we're seeing in terms of list design currently and sort of what is driving the meta as a whole. So looking forward to spending some time with you here. We'll take a quick musical interlude, and then we'll get right down to business with talking about LVO results.
Just a devil with love to spare, so viva Las Vegas.
All right, so the Las Vegas Open happened essentially a week after the update occurred, and it was the last event of the year in the United States to run on SR 2024. So we're going to look at these results and kind of understand them in the context of the previous meta with regards to the SR. But we're going to take a look at sort of the trends that we're seeing here in the two qualifiers and the Masters event in terms of what was taken, the general meta here, and kind of where people were at right after the update. So a couple of things that you see immediately in qualifier 1. There was 34 players, unique individuals that were part of this particular qualifying event. In qualifier heat 1, the top 4 went on to Masters, and a couple of notable bits in this event. We saw a majority of armies being prime. That said, there was a 5th Division player. There was an Infernals player. There were several Infernals player, 3 to be precise. We had a Grimkin player in the mix. And we had a Thornfall Alliance player as well. So definitely continuing the trend is your friend towards mostly prime armies in terms of Mark IV and a couple armies of legend of note. So this is a trend I can continue to see throughout the year. I do think you will continue to see certain factions of legend, primarily Infernals. You might see some 5th Division. You might see a few other things. Thornfall Alliance and minions just kind of show up as players want to, very specifically. All right, in qualifier 1, our player numbers broke out in the following way. We had 7 players on Dusk, House Callus. We had 5 players on Chimera, Shadowflame Shard, 5 players on Winter Core, Kador. 3 players on Storm Legion Signar. 3 players on Infernals. 3 players on Orgoth Sea Raiders. 3 players on Crix Necrofactorum. 2 players on Southern Creole Brine Bloods. 1 player on Grimkin, 1 player on 5th Division, and 1 player on Talion Charter. Now let's jump into, for the qualifier number 1, specifically the games played and the win rates. So 5th Division was your top army in this event. There was 1 player on it. So 3 games played, 3 games won, 100% win rate for 5th Division. 2 games for Butcher, 1 game for Malakoff. If you're wondering what the split was there. More interesting is the numbers on Infernals. There were 3 players on Infernals, 7 wins, 2 losses, 9 games played, 78% win percentage. Caster-wise, every game we do have caster record for. We have 3 games played with Agathon. Agathon was 3-0. And for Zadaroff, she had 6 games played, went 4-2 for a 67% win rate. So Armies of Legend in the first and second spots for qualification. Not the worst thing to see here. Then we have Winter Core, and Winter Core had, again, 5 players playing them, and we see 13 games played overall, 9 wins, 4 losses, 69% overall win rate. Caster breakdown, fairly interesting. 1 game played for Borashek, 1 win on 1 game played, 100% win rate. Kovaski, basically Bear Lady, 5 games played, 4-1, 80% win rate on the day. Velcool, 3 games played, 2-1, 2 wins, 1 loss, 67% win rate. Baranova, 1 game played, 1 loss. So that's how the Winter Core numbers break out. For Storm Legion, again, 3 Storm Legion players, 9 games played, 6-3, 67% win rate. Calder had 3 games played, 2-1, 67% win rate. Kane 4, responsible for the other 6 games, 4-2. There, again, for a 67% win rate. So very consistent with Storm Legion, who definitely I feel won the general update, and I think that's the general feeling across the board. Brian Bloods with 2 players saw 6 games played, 3 wins, 3 losses, 50% win rate. Caster-wise, we had 3 games for Ragemonger going 2-1, 67% win rate, and Thorga going 1-2 with a 33% win rate. Interestingly, Duskhouse Callus with the most players registered, 7, 18 games played, 8 wins, 10 losses, 40% win rate. So the nerfs potentially having some desired effect, at least in the short-term run for qualifier number 1 at LVO. Tyrus having caster breakdown. Tyrus had 3 games, 3 wins, no losses, 100% win rate. 1 game recorded for Hazaroth, 1 win, 100% win rate. Seraphel had 2 games, 1-1, 50% win rate. Moraine with a little bit of a pain showing, 9 games played, 2 wins, 7 losses, 22% win rate. Moraine is generally seen as a meta problem. I do think that there are a lot of adjustments in the meta currently that are happening from a list construction standpoint that are working to help curb what Moraine brings to the table. And I think this initial win rate is a little bit reflective of that, particularly and depending upon how list had been constructed for this event, some of the pieces not working as they did previously with Moraine also kind of hamper her general effectiveness, plus the fact that she's being actively teched for. Um, so that is something to look at, but we're going to see in qualifier 2 some near on the fly adjustments, as well as what sort of a different mix does to the win rates of these casters. All right, so Necrofactorum, 7 games played, 3 wins, 4 losses, 43% win rate in qualifier 1. 3 games for Nicane, 2-1, 67% win rate. 1 game played for Sepsera, and it was a loss, 0% win rate. 2 games for Eviscerus recorded, 0 wins, 2 losses. 1 game we did not get a caster recorded. So we have a little bit of blank spot there in the data, but again, an overall 43% win rate, not where they want to be. Speaking of not where they want to be, Orgoth Sea Raiders. Sea Raiders had 3 players, 8 games ended up being played, 3 games wins, 8 games losses, 38% win rate. Definitely a substantial fall from where they've been previously. In this particular event, Kishtar had 2 games recorded, 1 win, 1 loss, 50% win rate. 3 games recorded for Harusk, 0 wins, 3 losses, 0% win rate. Missing 3 games from a caster perspective. Probably there you're getting the additional 2 wins and additional 1 loss to Harusk, but it just wasn't recorded, so we don't know for certain. Grimkin, 1 player, 3 games played, went 1-2. Caster-wise, 1 game for the Wanderer, that was the win, 1-0, 100% win rate. And Dreamer was 0-1. Second or third game did not have caster recorded, so not certain who to attribute that to. Shadowflame Shard. Shadowflame Shard had a fair number of players for this event. They had 14 games played overall, 3 wins, 11 losses, 21% win rate. Absolutely abysmal. Caster recording, we had 2 games for Nixian. Nixian went 1-1 with a 50% win rate. Rassic had 5 games played, 1 win, 4 losses, 20% win rate. Shyrus went 0-5 with a 0% win rate. We have 2 games unrecorded. And then Thornfall Alliance had a 0% win rate overall. 2 games played, they were both losses. One of the games has a caster recorded, which was for Carver. Other game does not have caster recorded. First player in this particular qualifier won 58% of the time. Second player only 42%. The scenarios played were Battle Lines, Invasion, and Two Fronts. So the first player data is pretty interesting here, with such a heavy first player advantage on what are traditionally second player advantaged scenarios with Invasion and Two Fronts there. So that is a pretty interesting data point. So that was the first qualifier for LVO. Second qualifier for LVO also had 34 players, and it had a totally different mix of results, as well as a little bit different mix in terms of player participation. It is to be noted that the two primary executives for Steamforge Games played in this qualifier. They just dropped in and played in this particular qualifier. Our top four, I jump out of event number one. The four qualifiers from event number one were Adam Pricer with Signar, Corey Doyle with 5th Division, Mark Imanek with Wintercore, and Corey DeMoon from the Buffalo Meta, or Corey from the Buffalo Meta with Infernals. So those are your qualifiers from Qualifier 1. Qualifier 2, very different story, particularly for a couple of factions that did not fare well in Day 1. Day 2 saw some pretty different representation numbers, some increase in a couple spots, decrease in a couple of other spots, and very different overall result set. So we had 10 players this time for Dusk, 4 players for Signar, 4 players for Wintercore, 3 players for Shadowflame Shard, 3 players for Infernals, 3 players for Orgoth Sea Raiders, 3 players for Crix Necrofactorum, 1 player for Blindwater Congregation, 1 player for Army of Western Reaches, Scorn, 1 player for Brian Bloods, and again 1 player for 5th Division. Jumping over to the statistics and caster breakdown for this particular event. Army of the Western Reaches went 2-1, 67% overall win rate. Shadowflame Shard goes from the basement to the penthouse in this particular heat. 9 games played, 6 wins, 3 losses, 67% win rate. We see caster mix with 3 games going to Rassic. Rassic was 3-0. 1 game to Nixian. Nixian was 1-0. 2 games to Shyrus. Shyrus was 1-1 with a 50% win rate. And 1 game to Kyrax, with Kyrax going 0-1. 2 games, we do not know who the caster was, so the caster number is not entirely accurate because we have 2 that were not recorded. But again, going from a 22% win rate in Heat 1 to a 67% win rate in Heat 2, pretty interesting. Brian Bloods also with a dramatic turnaround, 67% overall win rate, only 1 player on them. Rangemonger used all 3 rounds. Rangemonger went 2-1. Infernals, 3 players, 8 games played, 5-3, 67% win rate. 4 games for Zadaroff. Zadaroff was 3-1 this event, 75% win rate. 2 games for Agathon, 1-1 with a 50% win rate. And 1 game for Omodamos. Omodamos did not win that particular game. 1 additional game was not recorded in terms of who the caster was. So there we see it also pretty dramatic turnaround in Sea Raiders win rate. Sea Raiders with 3 players, 7 games played, 4-3, 57% win rate. 4 games recorded for Harusk. He went 2-2 with a 50% win rate, and 2 games recorded for Kishtar, 1-1 with a 50% win rate. We do not have the 7th game caster recorded, so we don't have purely accurate numbers there. House Callus, 24 games played, 10 players, 12 wins, 12 losses, pure 50% win rate. Seraphel had 1 game and had 1 win, 100% win rate. Tyrus played 3 games. He went 2-1, 67% win rate. Moraine with a dramatic turnaround this event. Moraine 9 games played, 6-3, 67% win rate. Hazaroth, the big loser in this particular pile, 5 games played, 0 wins, 5 losses, 0% win rate. Again, a pretty substantial amount of games not recorded. So 6 games we don't have the caster data for. So take some of this caster percentaging with a little bit of grain of salt. The big one is Moraine taken 9 times and won 6. So pretty big turnaround from day one. Also in a turnaround from day one, Storm Legion going the opposite way. Storm Legion had 4 players. They had 11 games played, 5 and 6 on the day, 45% win rate. Kane 4, 7 games played, 4 and 3 for a 57% win rate. Calder 2 games played, 0 and 2 on from a result standpoint. 2 games not recorded from a caster standpoint. Winter Core had 4 players play. We got 10 games recorded, 4 and 6, 40% win rate. So pretty dramatic turnaround here as well. Velcool goes 2 and 1 with a 67% win rate. Kovaski, Bear Lady, 3 games played, 2 and 1, 67% win rate. Borashek, 2 games played, 1 and 1, 50% win rate. And Baranova, 2 games played, 0 and 2, 0% win rate. Baranova winless at LVO over the 2 days. Blind Water Congregation, 3 games played, 1 player, 1 and 2, 33% win rate. Malak with 1 game played. Jaga Jaga with 1 game played. Both with 0% win rate. We do know there was a win in there. We just don't know whether that's attributable to Malak or Jaga Jaga. Jaga Jaga. So 5th division, a little bit worse day. All 3 games butcher, 1 and 2 on the day, 33% win rate. Necrofactorum, again, 3 players played, 7 games total, 2 and 5 on the day, 29% win rate. Decathus with 1 game played, 0% or 1 win, 1 game played, 1 win, 100% win rate. Nicane, 3 games played, recorded wise, 1 win, 2 losses, 33% win rate. 1 game played for Subsera, 0 and 1, and 1 game recorded for Eviscerus, 0 and 1. The 7th game was not recorded from a caster standpoint, so we don't know who to attribute the additional loss to. But that is sort of the data breakdown from this qualifier. What we see, who we see qualify in here is Brandon Owen on Dusk. We see Aaron Smith also on Dusk. We see Cosenator on Shadowflame Shard. And we see Andy Cash on Storm Legion qualify in. So let's jump over to the finals. So in our finals, we have Corey Doyle. We have Corey from Buffalo. We have Aaron Smith. We have Andy Cash. We have Cocinerator. We have Adam Pricer. We have Brandon Owens. And we have Mark Uenak. From a games standpoint, we have 2 players on Dusk, 2 players on Storm Legion, 1 player on Shadowflame Shard, 1 player on Winter Core, 1 player on Infernals, and 1 player on 5th Division. Let's get into the deep statistics for the remainder of LVO. All right, 5th Division, our big winner, Corey Doyle, going 3-0 in the finals with 1 game for Butcher, 1 win, obviously, and then 2 games for Malakoff. Malakoff 2-0 in the finals. Infernals going 2-1 under the direction of Corey from Buffalo. 67% win rate. All 3 games, Zadorov 2-1 on the day. Storm Legion, 50% win rate, 6 games played, 3 up, 3 down. 2 games to 1 for Calder, 67% win rate. Kane 4, 3 games played, 1 and 2 on the day, only a 33% win rate for the House of Kane. Also a 50% win rate for Dusk House Callus. 6 games played, again 3 and 3. Tyrus with 3 games played, 2 and 1, 67% win rate. Moraine going 2 and 1, 50% win rate. And Serafeld being dropped 1 game and dropping that game for a 0% win rate. Shadow Flame Shard, 33% win rate on the day. 2 games for Rassic. Rassic going 1 and 1, 50% on the day. And then Nixian being the second list. Nixian dropped once and dropped that game. 0% win rate. And then Winter Core, unfortunately going 0 for 3 in the finals with 1 player, Borashek. 2 games played, 0 and 2. And then Kovaskai going 1 and 0, going 1 game played, going 0 and 1, 0-4. Invasion 2 fronts and Wolves at our heels were the final scenarios. Majority of games were won by scenario. 3 games were decided by cast or kill. Very interestingly, in the 24 games played in the finals, first player won 50% of the time, second player won 50% of the time. So pretty normalized compared to the other events. So a couple of things that were a little surprising here. We did not see any Orgoth in the finals. They were just sort of outside of the top ranking, but did have much better showing on day 2 qualifier than in the first qualifier, as bore out by their win percentage. We saw Dusk make a push. We saw Signar make a push. But in the end, LVO won and played in the finals were 5th Division and Infernals. So pretty intense battles. And again, Armies of Legends showing they still have some steam in Las Vegas. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears, have another musical interlude as we jump over to talk about CaptainCon.
Captain, my captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won.
Oh, Captain, my CaptainCon. Let's talk about CaptainCon and the mini craziness that is this event. So CaptainCon is really an interesting event this particular year. The SR dropped 3 days before the convention started, really 2 before events started rolling off. And CaptainCon has a main Masters event that you qualify in for. They had a bunch of qualifiers. Basically, they ran 7 heats simultaneously, as opposed to having a large over 40-person event. They broke it up into heats of 8 to make it more manageable, more visceral and visible to those playing. So, want to talk first about the Masters. The Masters also you get in by playing in the team tournament, and it's three-person team tournament, and the winner of that event and their two teammates get also qualified for Masters themselves. So let's talk about the Masters breakdown at CaptainCon. At CaptainCon, you had 16 players qualify. Two of the players were unable to make the final day due to travel concerns. They had won qualifying in their particular heats. Um, so this list of players is down one additional Dust player and one Brian Buds player. So I will include those in the numbers, although those two players did not play in the Masters finals for CaptainCon. So you had four Signar players, 10 games played. You had three Shadowflame Shard players, 9 games played. Two Wintercore players, 6 games played. Two Orgoth Sea Raider players, 6 games played. Two Necrofactorum players, 5 games played. Two Dusk players, only 2 games played. And one Brian Bud player, 0 games played for the Brian Bud player. So you will notice a complete lack of Armies of Legend in the final, although one of the Signar players qualified in playing 5th Division in their qualifying heat. So let's get into the advanced numbers here for the actual finals event, for the Masters event. So Storm Legion absolutely rocked this event. They won it overall. Again, 10 games played, 7 wins, 3 losses. Calder being the huge winner, um, with 6 of the games being recorded for her. 4 wins, 2 losses, 67% win rate. This means that Kane was used 4 times, and went 3-1 for the event for a 75% win rate. But Kane not recorded in the results. But we do know that that was the off list for the players that played in the event. Orgoth Sea Raiders, 6 games played, 3 up, 3 down, 50% win rate. 1 game recorded for Sabrith, 100% win rate for her, with the 1 game winning. Her Rusk, 3 games played, 2-1 on the day with a 67% win rate. Kishtar, 1 game played, 0-1 on the day. Dusk House Callus, 2 games played on the day, 50% win rate, 1-1. Moraine, 1-1. Shadowflame Shard, again, 3 players, 9 games played, 4-5. Shyrus playing 4 of those games, at least 4 of those games, 2-2 with a 50% win rate. 4 of the games for Rassic, 2-2 with a 50% win rate. The 9th game, we did not get a caster recorded, so not certain who that needs to be allocated to, but it would be a loss. Necrofactorum, 2 players, 5 games played, 2-3, 40% win rate. 2 games for Sipsera, 1-1, 50% win rate on the day. 2 games for Decathus, 1-1, 50% win rate. And Nicane, 0-1 on the day. Winter Core, 33% win rate, 6 games played, 2 up, 4 down. 1 game recorded for Sakura, 0-1. 2 games recorded for Savrin, 0 for 2. We are not certain where the other 2 wins should be allocated to, and the 1 loss in terms of caster selection. The 4 rounds utilized Color Guard, Trench Warfare, 2 fronts, and Wolves at our heels for this event. We saw first player win 47% of the time. Second player 53% of the time. Breakdown of game results. Cast or kill 5 games were decided by cast or kill. Death clock 1 game. 11 games by scenario. So let's talk about how we got here from the CaptainCon Masters event. So there was a number of qualifying heats, and we're going to bring those up now and kind of talk through them because it is better data to discuss kind of casually just because of the way that it's laid out. All right, there were 6 pods for CaptainCon. The first pod was won by Jake Van Meter, JVM. He was on Shadowflame. He was running, from a caster pairing perspective, Shyrus and Rassic. Um, Definitely encourage you to take a look at the builds that he was in. Pod was pretty interesting construction. In this particular pod, you had 2 players on Signar, 1 player on Brine Bloods, 1 player on Dusk, 1 player on Shadowflame Shard, 1 player on Wintercore, 1 player on Orgoth, and 1 player on Necrofactorum. In Pod 2, your overall winner was Stephen Rabideau. He was on Storm Legion. His Storm Legion pairing consisted of Alistair Kane, Kane 4, and Calder, Madison Calder. So, sort of the pairing that we're seeing quite a bit of in the overall mix. In this particular pod, very Signar heavy, 4 Signar players, 1 Brine Blood, 1 Grimkin, and 1 Wintercore for 7 of our players in this pod. I'm sorry, that was pod 3. Pod 2 was won by Blake Hooper. Blake was on Orgoth Sea Raiders with a pairing of Harusk and Sabrith, with a pretty innovative list for Orgoth that I think you're going to continue to see variants of, taking advantage of sort of the new tech that Orgoth was gifted, and trying to mitigate some of the nerfs that occurred to the faction. So this particular Harusk list features a Garlghast with a spider head, the double Infernus cannon and the double Rending Claw, 2 Groton Keeper, a Reaver Commander, double Forge Master, which are kind of critical to the list, double Nashers, also pretty critical to the list, 2 units of Ulker Axers, 2 units of Ulker Barragers, and a Jackal with an Arc Node, Mace, and Claw. So what is kind of the concept of this list? Essentially what this list is going to ask is it's going to put up a big frontage of spell immune objects. The spell immunity being on the Garlghast itself, who's also going to be a shield guard. Your 2 shield guarded keepers are also spell immune. Your Nashers are spell immune. Your Axers and Barragers are not, but with all of this beef up front, you can kind of create a wall that says you can't spell these guys because you can't see these guys, and you essentially dare the opponent to either clear all of the beef that is your spell immune infantry and your infantry, or you dare them to take out the 72 boxes of the Garlghast without any spell buffs. And it is proving to be a pretty difficult ask, particularly under Harusk's feat, where the model goes up to armor 21. If you have IR on it and not a way to easily remove it, such as Moraine's feet, that's an ARM 2372 box girl guest that you're being asked to remove on a feat turn that is likely scoring or contesting two elements on the board in many cases. Uh, it is a very tough list to deal with. It is paired up with a pretty standard Sabbath list. Again, a couple of Jackals, a couple of Tyrants, and a Ravener, with some infantry kind of to support. Um, Again, that particular pairing was sort of built to take on Crix. In his particular block, we saw one Orgoth, one Brine Blood, two Shadow Flame Shard, two Signar, and one Thornfall Alliance. In Pod 4, we had 8 players. Uh, this pod consisted of 3 Dusk, 1 Storm Legion, 1 Orgoth, 1 Brine Blood, 1 Army of Legend, Devourer's Host, Circle, and 1 Necrofactorum. Winner of this pod was Brandon Owens, running Dusk. His Dusk pairing consisted of Moraine and Tyrus. Pod 5, we see Chris Gunther winning this pod, going 3-0. In this particular pod, Chris ran Necrofactorum. He was in a pod with 3 Dusk, 1 Wintercore, 1 Brine Blood, and 2 Signar Storm Legion. Chris's pairing was Sipsera and Nicaine. And last but not least, our 6th pod was won by Marc-Andre LeBlanc from good old Canada. He was on 5th Division, essentially the same list that Corey Doyle had used to win LVO. Marc-Andre's pairing again was Malakoff and Butcher. It was in a pod with 1 Signar Storm Legion, 1 Shadow Flame Shard, 1 Necrofactorum, 2 Wintercore, 1 Orgoth Sea Raider, and 1 Dusk. Pretty interestingly, uh, Marc-Andre played, again, Signar Storm Legion in the Masters Finals. 3 of the rounds, he dropped Calder. And he won all of his games, including a Signar off with Steve King. So pretty impressive overall result stream. For CaptainCon. On the day. 6 pods. They took the top 2 from each pod. Alrighty. So that is CaptainCon in a nutshell. I want to do a little bit of contrasting styles with LVO and CaptainCon. So one of the things you'll notice is a pretty significant difference between LVO and CaptainCon was the sheer volume of Signar in the mix on the East Coast, meaning the CaptainCon event, versus the West Coast event. Most of the West Coast, or most of the players that were bringing Signar to the West Coast event were indeed uh, East Coast players, which is a pretty interesting data point, and definitely highlights that the New England meta as a whole, the East Coast meta, is very heavy in Signar. Again, we see a bit of struggling from Crix. We see some trends emerging in Orgoth in terms of utilizing the spell immune Garlgast with her Rusk and heavy spell immunity to try and break some of the overall meta threats. With those overall meta threats being Kane 4 with Storm Legion and Moraine with Duskhouse Callus. So these points are kind of where the meta is shifting and forming, and we're sort of in a point where things are starting to change and evolve, particularly with the new Steamroller that has launched. So let's jump over to the Broken Coast Barrage that just occurred this weekend. Um, this is a large event in the western part of Canada, British Columbia, hosted by Mario of Shop Talk fame. An excellent event, 31 players attending on the 32 players attending on the War Machine side, 6 players attending on the Warcaster side. So a very large event overall, drew quite the crowd, and I want to get into this event quite a bit. So we're going to have a little bit of a musical break, and then we'll come back to you with the Barrage of the Broken Coast. Welcome back. We are talking about the Broken Coast Barrage that just finished up here on Saturday. Absolutely giant event in Western Canada. Absolutely gorgeous pictures from the event. It was a predetermined 4 rounds, so you're going to see 2 players at 4-0. We'll talk a bit about that. So they did not have a definitive winner, but they did have a definitive top 2. And this was by design. Again, 31 players at this event. This speaking a little earlier. We're going to see some familiar names from the last event here on the west coast of Canada, as opposed to the east coast of the United States. So very large event, 31 players representing. Many of the players here were also present at the last events that we spoke about, LVO and CaptainCon. Some attending both, some only attending one or the other. So we really sort of get a mixing of the general North American meta here in this particular event, at least players that have played across the board. So let's talk about faction breakdown at this 31 player single day. On the day, we saw 7 players playing Orgoth, 28 games played, 7 players on Sea Raider Orgoth, 22 games played for Shadowflame Shard, 6 players, 15 games played for Duskhouse Callus, 4 players representing, 12 games played for Khador Wintercore, 3 players, 3 players on Southern Creel Brinebloods, 12 games played. Infernals, Armies of Legend showing up, 8 games played for 2 players. Again, four rounds on the day. Only one Signar player, 4 games played for that Signar player. We saw both a Storm of the North and a United Krills, some old school trolls showing up, 1 player for each, 4 games played for each of those particular factions. We see Armored Core showing up, 4 games played, 1 player on them. We see a Legions of Dawn, Retribution player, 4 and 1, and we see 3 games played for Rillet Guard. So a big showing for Army of Legends in terms of player count and diversity. Great to see some old school trolls making it out to the event, and I want to get into their statistics, as that's pretty interesting on the day. Again, as we talked about before, Armies of Legend are not dead. It is just up to players to find the gold, have the skill, have the reps, and get them to the table. So first things first, the 2 best performing armies overall by win percentage were Armored Core and Storm of the North. Again, both of these are a single data point, meaning it's just 1 player, but both of them did go 3 and 1. Armored Core having 3 wins, 1 loss. 2 games played for Harkovich, 2 games played for Rusk, Rusk going 1 and 1 with a 50% win rate. Storm of the North also going 3 and 1. Borka absolutely dominant, 3 and 0 for Borka with 3 games played. Doom Shaper was a little bit of a doom, unfortunately. 1 game played, no win for Doomy. Duskhouse Callus, 4 players playing, 15 games played, 9 and 6, 60% win rate. Really strong showing for Duskhouse Callus. Moraine had 10 games played, 8 games up, 2 games down, 80% win rate. Tyrus 0 and 4, 4 games played. Pardon me. 1 game unrecorded for Duskhouse Callus, so we're not certain who that one should go to, but it is a win. So it's either a win for Moraine or it's a win for Tyrus. So we will see at some point, hopefully, there, but not all games recorded from a caster perspective. All right, moving on to Brine Bloods. Again, three players on Brine Bloods, 12 games played, 7 and 5, 58% win rate. Thorga having 8 games played, 6 up, 2 down, 75% win rate for Thorga at the event. Rangemonger, 2 games played, 1 up, 1 down, 50% win rate. Shadow Tongue, 2 games played, 0 and 2, 0% win rate. Shadow Tongue not having the day he wanted to have. Good old Storm Legion, with 1 player going 2 and 2, 4 games played, 2 games played by Kane, 1 and 1, 50% win rate, and Wolf going 1 and 1, 50% win rate. So Storm Legion with just kind of an even day. Winter Core, 3 players, 12 games, 6 and 6, perfect 50% win rate. Velcool having 2 games played, 2 and 0. Velcool absolutely dominating her selections. Savrin, 6 games played, 3 and 3, 50% win rate. Sakura, 2 games played, 1-1, 50% win rate. Uh, Good old Bearski, Kovis, Koviski, 2 games played, 0-2, no love for the real Mama Bear. Infernals, 2 players, 8 games played, 4-4, again a 50% win rate. Uh, Zadaroff, 2-3, 5 games played, going 2-3, 40% win rate. Agathon, 1 game played, 0-1, 0% win rate. Obviously, we're missing 2 wins here for Infernals. Not certain where they should go because their casters were not recorded at the time. 1 Legion of Dawn player, 50% win rate, 2 up, 2 down. Helena going 1-1 for 50%, and Assyria also going 1-1, 50% win rate. Sea Raiders, 46% win rate, 28 games played, 13 up, 15 down. Rusk, the big winner with 20 games played, 11 games to the good, 9 to the bad, 55% win rate. Sabrith, 2 games played, 1-1, 50% win rate. Kishtar, 4 games played, 1-3, 25% win rate. And Butcher gets a game, 1 game played, 0-1, 0% win rate for him. Shadowflame Shard, 40%, 41% win rate, 22 games played, 9 up, 13 down. Nixian having a great day. 4 games played. She was 3-1 on the day for a 75% win rate. Kyrax, 10 games played, 4 up, 6 down, only a 40% win rate. Shyrus right behind with 6 games played, 2 up, 4 down, 33% win rate. Rassic, 2 games played, 0-2. Rassic couldn't buy a win at this event. All right, Rulic Guard, 3 games played, 1-2, all 3 games to Gorton. Gorton was 1-2, 33% win rate. United Krills tried. They really did. United Krills, 4 games played, 1-3, 25% win rate. All 4 games were Madrak. Madrak 1-3. At the event, we saw Best Laid Plans played, Payload played, Trench Warfare, 2 fronts, and Wolves at our heels. Looks like the Payload one was just a miscounting for Trench Warfare. 13 games decided by Caster Kill, 13 games decided by Deathclock, 29 games decided by Scenario. 50 of the 57 games played, 54% went to the first player, and a 46% win rate for second player. So we have a very live scenario pack. This does not surprise me very much, particularly with sort of the selection that was present from an event standpoint. So a lot of fun things here. And again, I want to talk about the top 5 at a 31 player event. I think talking about the top 5, 6 is something that we should do, um, and sort of discuss armies that were played, where they were at, and a few other bits. So interestingly, Marc-Andre LeBlanc takes the event overall on tie breaks. He was one of he was one of the 2 4-0s. He was on Orgoth Sea Raiders. And again, we're going to see a permutation of a list of lists that sort of won CaptainCon. And I want to talk about these lists quite a bit. So we see a rift on the Harusk list here. We see a Jackal, Arknode, Mace, Clawed Fist. We see that Garlgast with Spiderhead, double Infernus Cannon, double Rending Claw. We see a single Grottenkeeper this time. We see Malgrith, the Carnal Plague, enter the list. We see a Reaver Commander. We see a Siege Tarrasque. Again, we see the double Vorkal Forge Masters. We see double Nashers. We see double Axers. We go down to single Ulker Barrager. So sort of the changes in the list. We drop a keeper to add Malgrith. We use the extra point there to help us get a Reaver Commander. We drop the Ulker Barragers to give ourselves the Siege Tarrasque. we use the extra point from dropping the Groton Keeper and just going to Mulgrith. Again, a difference of 5 points on the Keeper to 4, and use the Barragers 8 points and that extra point to get us a Siege Tarrasque for 9. So some of the things that does for the list, it shores you up a little bit more against armies that are living or elements of armies that are living um, on the Grelgas, because the Siege Tarrasque has the ability to give Mortal Fear. It can also get that Mortal Fear by killing something with its Harpoon. And the Harpoon has an 18-inch effective threat range because it's a 12-inch shot, and he moves 6 inches. So it's not nothing um, there. Additionally, the Siege Tarrasque is 24 boxes that the opponent will eventually have to deal with. Um, it gives you a drag element for things like MMD 47, also known as Biggest Pigus. Gives you drag effects for the Wyvern. Gives you drag effects for Cavalry. Uh, it makes certain matches a little more uncomfortable for the opponent, but it does reduce your spell immunities overall and give your opponent a pretty big target to do some things with. So there's some trade-offs in what you're picking up. The Sabrith list here, um, we see again kind of a similar theme to what was present in the previous list. Double Arc Node, single Berserk Jackals. We see a Tyrant with a Scything Claw and Scything Flail and Claw. We see a Tyrant with a Hunter Head, a Harpoon, as well as a Quad Bolt Thrower. We see a Ravener. Again, we see Therian Vanek. We see Double Forge Master. We see Strike Reavers with a Reaver Standard. We see a single unit of Barragers and double unit of Witch Coven. So not really breaking new ground here on the Sabrith list, but it does cover the holes in the Hurrusk list pretty well. On the day, Hurrusk was used all 4 games. Hurrusk facing 2 Orgoth matches, a match into Shadowflame Shard, and the final match into Storm of the North with Doomshaper. All 4 wins. Coming down to our other 4-0 compatriot here. You know him, you love him. He was at both LVO and CaptainCon this year. Got into Masters for both. Brandon Owens playing Dusk with a Moraine Tyrus pairing. Moraine all 4 games played. Moraine facing Shadowflame Shard. Double Brine Bloods facing two different Brine Blood players on the road to the finals. And Armored Core in the final round to go 4-0 qualify for second place in the event based on tiebreakers. Again, this being a single day event and electing for 4 rounds ahead of time because of the distances that folks have to travel back home. Third place, we see Orgoth again, 3-1 on the day. Road Goblin taking it. And Road Goblin on a Sabrith and Hurrusk build. This Hurrusk build, interestingly enough, 4 Jackals. All advanced deploy, all mace, clawed fist. And going 3-1 on the day. Their particular mix, they ran Hurrusk all 4 games. They had Shadowflame Shard. They had Winter Core. They had a mirror match, which they lost Hurrusk on Hurrusk to the overall winner of the event, Marc-Andre LeBlanc. And then in their final round, they had Rulip Guard, or third round, they had Rulip Guard. And won that. Corey Doyle in 4th place with Armored Core. Again, going 3-1 with Harkovich and Erusk. And again, a Rusk having 2 games played, 1 win, 1 loss. Harkovich, 2 games played, both wins. And in 5th place, Storm in the North, an army of legend, um, being absolutely legendary with Borka and Doomshaper, getting in and playing in one of the final games against playing the final game against Marc-Andre LeBlanc. Their road to the finals was again Shadowflame Shard, uh, double Winter Core, and then Orgoth, which is where they took their loss to Rusk. 6th place, we see Brine Bloods. This particular with Corey Kobik. We see a pairing of Ragemonger and Admiral Boomhowler, or Thorga. Uh, 3-1 on the day. Thorga was dropped, meaning Admiral Boomhowler, all 4 games. They had a Moraine game to start, which they won. They played into Rulik Guard, which they won. They had a game into Harkovich, which they lost. And then they had a game into Winter Core, which they won. Shadowflame Shard, 7th place. Cocinerator, again, someone that was at LVO, also made it into Masters, on a pairing of Nixian and Rassic. Going 3-1 on the day. They played Nixian all 4 rounds. Nixian 3-1 for them, winning against a Shadowflame Shard Mirror, where the opponent dropped Shyrus, losing to Harusk with Bradagast, losing to Marc-Andre LeBlanc's Harusk, winning against Shadow Tongue in a match against Brian Blood Marauders, and then also winning against Harusk in the 4th round. Luke Rowan, also on Brian Bloods, went 3-1 in the 8th spot. He was on a pairing of Ragemonger and Admiral Thorga Boomhowler. Again, all 4 rounds, Thorga. First round against Tyrus was a win. Second round against Kishtar was a win. 4th round against Moraine was a loss to Brandon Owens, who was one of the other 4-0s. At the other 4-0 at this event, taking second. And then 3rd round was Thorga versus Savron, Winter Core, and it was a win for Luke. We'll go all the way to all the way to 10th place at this event, just to cover all the 3-1s, because I think it's important to do so. We have Jeff Sack on Dusk. Dusk pairing here was Moraine and Tyrus. We have Moraine dropped all 4 rounds. We have a loss against Velcool. We then have a win against Harusk, a win against Kyrax, and a win against Kane 4. And then in 10th place, Aaron Smith, who was also at LVO, with a pairing of Moraine and Tyrus. He was on Moraine twice. 3rd game, he does not have an indication of who was dropped, and he had a bye in the 2nd round. Moraine lost to Thorga Boomhowler, within the Brian Bloods match. Took the bye decisively. Played against Sean Hopkins in round 3. Played Moraine into Kishtar, and Moraine won. Fourth round does not indicate which caster was taken. Played against Shadowflame Shard into Rassic. My assumption is that was probably a Moraine game, but it could have been otherwise. Um, so pretty interesting event, especially when you look at the top 10. You see double Brine Bloods in the top 10. You see triple Dusk in the top 10. You see double Orgoth in the top 10. And then you see two Army of Legends in the top 10 in the form of Armored Core and Storm of the North. And you also see one Shadowflame Shard player in the top 10. So what we're seeing is the meta in this particular packet, at least early, is really favoring diverse and interesting setups of armies. Um, you can do a lot with this particular packet. I do think you're seeing certainly that House Callus is still in very good shape. This is a pretty great data point with a 60% win rate on the day um, and 15 games played over 4 players. Uh, that gives you a pretty good indication of overall health. Um, but what's the more interesting data point to me is Trolls at 58%, or sorry, Brine Bloods at 58%, with 3 players playing, 12 games played. Again, you're seeing a 50% win rate out of Winter Core. Again, 12 games played out of 3 players. You're seeing Sea Raiders just sub 50% in an event where they had 7 players play 28 games. Shadowflame Shard, 41% win rate, 9 and 13 with 22 games played off of, again, 6 or 7 players playing, or 6 players playing. Uh, those are numbers that you expect as you start to get larger portions of your population playing these items, because they're going to start to bring down the overall performance of a particular faction. Um, but again, that top 10, we see some really good diversity uh, in it. It's a very interesting mix of players at this event. Uh, Also incredibly interesting is that uh, Broken Coast, you get a real mix of players. You're seeing Brandon Owens, who is definitely a jet setter. He's part of the WGC team for America this year on one of the American teams. Longtime player in Mark II. I think he dabbled a little bit in Mark III or played a bit of Mark III and eventually fell off and then came back in Mark IV. Very enjoyable play. If you get the chance to, definitely give him a game. Ton of fun. Marc-Andre LeBlanc, again, an East Coaster from a Canadian standpoint that traveled all the way to this event to play in it. So, fantastic event. Mario ran just an absolutely awesome one by the looks of it. Really cool to see all of the games played here. Get this major data point, and excited to have talked about it. So, what does it all mean? Well, we're still very, very early in the 2025 packet. People are still figuring things out. I think we definitely have some villains in the meta. Moraine is a big one. I think Thorga is becoming something for Brine Bloods to hang their hat on in terms of giving them some outs into the general meta. I think Shadowflame Shard is finding its way. I do think that they are going to be a very interesting watch for the rest of the year as we find our feet post, and I say we because I'm playing them as well, um, as we kind of find our feet going into the remainder of the year, and with some things that we kind of know are coming. We've got Lilith coming. Um, we expect at some point they're going to get a colossal, and who knows what that does. Uh, it's very exciting to think about the future of that faction and to be dabbling with it with all the changes that it had in the update, particularly in this new packet, which I think really plays into its strengths. Winter Core is becoming more of a North American thing. It wasn't previously. I think the Windstorm changes have really elevated that faction in terms of general playability. Velcool has done a lot for the faction. This packet also does a ton for the faction, where it's really favoring Battle Group, and Winter Core really wants to be a Battle Group heavy faction.
Give me a home among the gum trees with lots of plum trees. A sheep, a turk, a kangaroo, a clothesline out the back, veranda out the front, and an old rocking chair.
I would be remiss not to talk about in my little wrap up. Good old CanCon. CanCon, for those that are unaware, is a giant event that occurred on the 25th of January in Australia. So the Aussies gathered together, 42 players strong, at a major event and had a raucous time where the active player went ahead and took it all. So let's talk about the breakdown of factions here and then get into the general statistics here. Again, from a timing perspective, this event utilized Steamroller 2024 and was just shortly after the overall update occurred. Um, so players were playing with the new update items, but were not yet playing the new scenarios. So sort of a time capsule, bit of an interesting mix. On the whole, absolutely wonderful event from all told. Definitely check out the Dark Guidance episode where the top two finalists discuss all of the events because they happen to be the hosts of the show. So check that out. But let's talk about player breakdown. So, from a player perspective, 6 players were on Brine Blood's 26 games played, 6 players on Signar 25 games played, 5 players on good old Wintercore, Khador Wintercore, 22 games. Uh, then we see a little bit of a drop off in player count. We see 3 players on Shadowflame Shard, 12 games played. We see 3 players on Dusk, 11 players on Orgoth. Uh, 3 players on Orgoth, 11 games played. 2 players on Final Interdiction Menoth, 8 games played. 2 players on Infernal, 6 games played. 2 players on Grimkin, 6 games played. 1 player on Necrofactorum, 4 games played. 1 player on Convergence of Cyrus, 4 games played. 1 player on Armored Core, 4 games played. 1 player on Army of the Western Reaches, 4 games played. 1 player on Dark Operations, 4 games played. 1 player on Retribution, Legion of Dawn, 4 games played. 1 player on Thornfall Alliance, 4 games played. 1 player on Secret Dominion, Circled Secret Dominion, 4 games played. 1 player on Crucible Guard, 3 games played, and 1 player on Dark Host or Dragon's Host, um, Legion Dragon Host, 3 games played. Let's jump into the advanced statistics, and then we'll talk a bit about the rest of it. So, interestingly enough, Necrofactorum again, with just 1 player, 4 games played, 3 wins, 1 loss, 75% win rate, top win rate at the event. Again, showing that win rate can be deceptive based on games played, but we still talk about it. 1 game won for Sepsera, 100% win rate. 3 games played for Eviscerus, 2-1, 67% win rate there. Now let's talk about some better data points, slightly better data points. 3 players on House Callus, 12 games played, 7-5 for a 58% win rate. We see Hazaroth with 2 games played, 100% win rate. Seraphel with 2 games played, 100% win rate. Tyrus with 4 games played, 2-2, 50% win rate. Moraine, 2 games played, 0-2. Uh, Apparently things are upside down on in Australia. So quite interesting there. Speaking of upside down, Shadowflame Shard, 58% win rate. 3 players, 12 games played, 7-5 on the day. Kyrax going for 1 game, 1 win, 100% win rate. Rassic, 3 games played, 2-1 on the day, 67% win rate. 3 games played for Shyrus, 1-2, 33% win rate. Does appear that no matter where you are, Shadowflame Shard has a very hard time recording their casters. So we have only 9 games recorded of the 12 from a caster perspective. So we're missing three games and 3 wins. So we don't know who that was, who those brave souls were. Uh, from that perspective. So the world may never know, but we will dig into the data anyway. Storm Legion, 23 games played. Again, an absolute trundle load of Storm Legion players at this event. 13 games won, 10 games lost, 57% win rate. Huxley, 3 games played, 3-0. Huxley just taking it to the world with his glow up. Kane 4, 7 games played, 5 up, 2 down, 71% win rate. Kane 4, again, proving to be the bastion of the faction. Wolf, 7 games played, pardon me, 4 up, 3 down, 57% win rate. And Calder, blessed Calder, 3 games played, 1-2, only a 33% win rate. Wintercore, who ends up taking down the entirety of the event, 18 games played, 10 up, 8 down, 56% win rate. 2 games won by Valari Savrin, 2 up, two games played, 2 wins, 100% win rate. Velcool, 7 games played, 6-1, 86% win rate. Put her in the box. She is absolutely fantastic. And that is cross-continent data that we can now confirm. Borashek, 4 games played, 1 up, 3 down, 25% win rate. And Sakura, 1 game up, or 1 game played, no wins. Sakura having a little bit of a rough time. It's okay. Brian Bloods, 24 games played, 54% win rate, 13 up, 11 down. Biggity Bomb, Bugatti Bomb, 1 game played, 1 win, 100% win rate. Absolutely should be in your pair. Don't put him in your pair. Thorga, 3 games played. Thorga Broomhauer, 3 games played, 2 up, 1 down, 67% win rate. Ragemonger, absolutely the go-to for all of your needs. 10 games played, 5 up, 5 down, 50% win rate. Firequill, 1 game recorded, no wins, just a loss. Put Firequill back away. Just back away from the Firequill. It is okay, Brian Bloods players. Then we get into some more one-off data on Armies of Legend, a bunch of 50% win rates, 2-2, 2-2, Grimkin with their 2 players, 3-3, 50% win rate, Legion of Dawn, 2-2, Infernals, again, 50% win rate, 3-3, Dark Operations, 2-2, Orgoth Sea Raiders, 45% win rate, 3 players at this event, 11 games played, 5-6 on the day. Harusk, 4-4, 8 games played, 4-4, 50% win rate. Kishtar, 2 games recorded, 0-2 for 0% win there. 1 win unrecorded from a caster perspective. So my assumption is that is probably a Harusk win, more likely than not. 2 players on final interdiction, 8 games played, 3 up, 5 down, 38% win rate. There we have 1 game for Krios, 1 win, 100% win rate. 1 game for Cyrenia recorded, no wins, 1 loss. Then we have no additional data. So no real caster data available on final interdiction, which is a little sad. particularly being as we had 2 players that played 4 games with them. Crucible Guard, 3 games played, 33% win rate, 1 and 2. We see a loss for Bennett and a loss for McKay. Not certain where they got the win. And then we crawl into the basement for Armored Core, Thornfall Alliance, Secret Dominion, and Dragon's Host with 25 or below win rates. One of the neat things that CanCon does is they do a cut to a top 4. So in the top 4, which I think is important to talk about, we had 2 Khador, 1 Brine Blood, and 1 Storm Legion. Chris Davies was your overall champion with Winter Core. He was on a pairing of Valcool and Valari Savrin. The Savrin list utilizes avalanches. Definitely, if you want some more play-by-play, check out the Dark Guidance podcast that details the 2 matches pretty spectacularly, as well as the tech. A bit of spice in the Valcool list is the addition of Razor. They make a pretty compelling argument for Razor throughout the cast. So again, definitely check it out. Just dropped the other day. So enjoy. Second place at the event was Aaron, also of Dark Guidance fame, on Brines. And he was rocking a pair of Ragemonger and Thorga Boomhowler. The Boomhowler list, pretty interesting. You see Great Old One in it, which is great to see. I like Great Old One quite a bit, but I don't see it here played here in the States nearly enough. So it's very good to see that particular model in a Thorga list performing well at CanCon and being second place overall. Third place overall, we have Storm Legion Signar. They were on a pairing of Anson Wolf and Alistair Kane, Kane 4. And then the fourth place, unfortunately unable to get a win in the finals, was another Winter Core player on a mixture of Ilari Borashek and Valcool. This Valcool running a pretty interesting bit of tech with an Avalanche, Medveditsa, Razor, Sky Bomber, Single Bison, Kruger, Winter Corps Officer, and only a unit of Arcanists and the Hounds and Snipers. So pretty interesting and different Velcool list here. So something to look at and pick at. Borashek list also featured Razor and an Avalanche, which are bits that are not common, at least in other builds that I've seen recently in other parts of the world. So interesting bits of tech. Interested to see how the Australian meta grows throughout the year. But good to see Chris Davies back in the finals at CanCon. Even better to see him winning it, particularly with Winter Core. Always enjoy his lists and take on the game. And Chris getting back to full tournament form is always a great thing for the entirety of War Machine. So that is our meta breakdown to this point. Where we've had the update, people are digesting a little bit. We've just had the Steamroller update to 2025. We're still evaluating this packet, still trying to understand it. The packet seems very fast. Scenarios seem very live. compared to the previous packet, which is something cool. And there's a lot of different bits in it. I am a big fan of where the current packet is at. Um, I feel very good about it. I feel um, more like I understand these scenarios and what they're kind of calling for more than I did 2024, at least in terms of I don't forget things on these scenarios nearly as much, which is encouraging this early in, when I was constantly having to recheck things on 2024. So I feel better about the mental load on these scenarios. So we'll see if I still feel that way as I continue to play these. We will be back soon with more episodes as we get into the new year. I wanted to get this one out, and I was kind of waiting for the rest of these events to drop, so that we could do a big update, post the update, which we did tonight. I think we had a lot of fun with this. So I hope you enjoy it. Please like, subscribe, share. If you're on if you haven't seen our YouTube, please check out our YouTube. We'll be getting some more videos up there, including some painting stuff here shortly. And thank you for listening, and looking forward to bringing you more in 2025.